Are you ready to discover the secret to crafting a breathtaking handmade card that will leave a lasting impression? Hi, my name is Tony, and in this video, I'll take you step by step through the process of creating a card with a stunning floral arch, a vibrant color palette, and shimmering foil accents. Whether you're a seasoned crafter or just starting out, you'll learn how to use the beautiful Floral Arches stamp and stencils from the Greetery to add a touch of elegance and sophistication to your card making. If you want to wow your loved ones with a piece of art they'll treasure forever, keep watching. What can be better than finding a package full of crafty supplies after coming home from a work trip? So I had ordered a handful of things from the Greetery. I had never used their products in the past, and I wanted to just check them out. I have to say one thing though, the products were shipped out almost immediately after I'd ordered, and I received the package. This is coming in from the US. I'm in Canada. Usually it takes over a week for me to receive a package, but this was really quick. So I am super pleased, and already I see something that's labeled thank you here, and my nail polish matches the colors on whatever that is. Looks like a stamped chamois or something. This is so funny, and I can't wait to unpack and start using this, because what I bought are some stamps and love the bag as well. So this in itself requires a mention. This is absolutely something I'm going to use to store, I don't know, store stamps or supplies or whatever, but this is so pretty. I love it. So let's start with this. Thank you for 5 wonderful years. I love this. We hope you enjoy this little gift, a token of a microfiber cloth. Seriously. Okay, so this is a microfiber cloth, and thank you so much, Betsy. This is so pretty, and it has the Greetery brand on it. Thank you so much, Betsy. This is so appreciated. Love this. Definitely going to be using it. I remember ordering this one, the die cut that I should see when I use it. That's beautiful. I love this as well. This is the Bluebells, Botany Cuts Bluebells. This is the die, and I will use this on a card real soon. And this is what I was most excited about. Of course, I'm excited to use those as well. I've been wanting to use some kind of an arch floral or something similar, and this is the stamp set. It's a layering stamp set as far I can see, and it also has stencils, which I am super excited about. It's called the Floral Arches Stamp and Stencil, and the stencils are numbered, which is nice, and it also has a registration mark. I think that's what they're called, where I can see the border on the stencil. So I know that when I'm using the different layers on my cardstock, I can actually position the cardstock in a way that everything is aligned. Oh, I love it. It also has the arch, and I can detach this and use this as a mask. I think I need to cut it. I can use this as a mask, and I can use this to mask off my cardstock and stencil the inside part. So this is an additional thing, but it has 6 layers. Love it. Very minute details included in the layers. And then this is, I believe, what is going to build the larger areas that form part of the arch. And it comes with a guide. They also have suggestion for colors that could be used, and also what makes up. So the flower one has everything marked. Flower one, I don't know if you can see it. Maybe I can put it on this. And the layering as well as the detail stamps have numbers that basically correspond to the diagram, the guide on this side. And it also has 3 flowers, which are layering stamps, besides the ones for the stencils, the A1 and A3, A2, etc. The stamps are all labeled, and you also have the numbers that are pointing to indicating what part of the flower or flowers each of these stamps will help build. And this is, I think I love this. This is going to be beautiful. They're saying this color combo is just one example. So I think I am super excited to get started with this one, and let's get in and make a card with the floral arches first. And in another video, I'm definitely going to use the other two dies and see what I can come up with. So let's dive into the card making. So I'm back to make the card. I tried the stencils and the stamps off camera, and I'm going to explain to you exactly what the process was when I create the card panel. And first, let me explain these three sets of inks. You must be wondering what they are. So if I can bring some context to that, let me, I know we went through the stamp set and the stencils and also the guide over here. The guide was really helpful when I was using the stencils and the stamps as well. What I also realized about the stamps is that here is one set numbered A1 through 7 that kind of stamps the different details and things like that on the stenciled image. But you have a second set of stamps that's marked flower 1, flower 2, flower 3, etc. that will create the flowers separately. Now, the only thing is that I could not find the coordinating dies for this set. I looked and maybe they're sold out, so I will definitely have to do some fussy cutting, but I'm going to be using the stencils and the detailed stamps for this card panel. I might do another card with the stamps, the layering stamps later on. But let's get started. And I have obviously an A2 card panel, and that is exactly what the instructions are on this guide. It actually tells you step-by-step stencil and stamp, and it says start with A2 sized card panel, because I already mentioned that there are these registration marks here, so your card panel can be positioned exactly to align with the marks. If you can see the etchings here, and then that is going to help you keep the card aligned, and the stenciling is going to go way easier, and it'll be where all the impressions or the inking will go where they need to go and not all over the place. So I'm going to set the stamp aside and I'm going to explain one thing here. So these colors, this the first set of colors, these are for the stencil. So we have 6 layers of stencils. We do have a 7th one, either way, which I already showed you. What did I do with the, I've already lost the mask. I can't believe it. All right, so for this layer 7, the mask was lost and found. Now, if you remember in my unpacking video, this was attached. So I just took my X-Acto knife, my craft knife, and I just very gently detached them, and the mask detached from the stencil very, very easily. So I'm going to set this aside for now because I will use this layer as well. Now, so these are, like I said, the 6 layers for the 6 stencil, rather 6 inks for the 6 layers of stencils. These 3 will be used with the stamps for the flower center and for the flower details, because I'll be creating 2 different colors of flowers, and this is what we're going to use with this stencil. So I'm going to keep them here, and I'm just going to make sure that I don't get confused while I'm creating, which is very, very common with me. And I will also keep this guide right here so that I can refer to it if I need to. First things first, though, I'm using the low tack sticky mat from Altenio, and this is very, very helpful when I'm stenciling because I can stick the paper down. You see, it's kind of stuck down really well, but more than the paper as well, if I just position the stencil, I can stick down, and I can see this is crooked. So I need to get this really straight so that I can get all the subsequent layers well aligned up the registration marks. I know it's not going to be very visible on camera, but it's definitely visible in person. So I have this lined up over here, and I am going to start with the first layer of inks. So let's start with layer number 1, which is the green. And if I follow along, the stencil 1, stencil 2, and stencil 3 are all greens. So this is going to be stencil 1. I'm going to use a smaller brush because these are smaller openings. So I'm going to use a smaller brush, even though I have these larger brushes and I could use them, but I will use a smaller brush. If you think that this is looking a little bit splotchy, don't worry, because these inks will smooth out once they dry. So I am not really worried. I'm just focusing on getting the color onto the leaves. So that is stencil number 1. Quickly wipe this away. Stencil number 2, also making sure the registration marks are aligned so I can get the ink in the right places. This one is for stencil number 2. I'll use the same tail brush, and this is a darker ink. By the way, I just realized that I completely forgot to talk about the inks that I'm using. I'm using Pink Fresh Studio inks. They are beautiful dye inks, very vibrant, beautiful colors, very cheerful. And the colors that I'm going to be using for the leaves are Spruce Tips. That was the last one. This is Lush Forest, and this one is Sage. I will tell you the other ink colors as I start blending with them. Next is stencil number 3, and again I'm just aligning this and pressing it down, and you see the stencil adhering to the sticky mat really well, so I can keep my hands free and I don't have to hold the stencil down. I'm using another detail brush, and I'm going to go in and do this layer. Layer 3 is done. Look at the tack on this, and look at how beautiful these colors are looking. Next is layer number 4, and I'm trying to line it up as perfectly as I can. This is something you have to be careful about. I can see this is not lined up properly. I'm sorry if my head is getting in the camera, because I really need to make sure it's lined up well. This looks better, but I keep pushing this up because if you can see, these are very delicate details over here. So I have to be really careful I don't destroy this. This one is called Hydrangea. This is also Pink Fresh. This is called Hydrangea. I'm going to use a slightly larger brush because the openings are slightly larger on this. I'm going to go a little bit darker in the middle and then lighten it up on the edges. Same here. This is a tiny flower, so I'm going to keep this as light as possible. We're done with this one. And I'm going to be really careful when I clean this. You see, the fibers are getting caught, just like my finger was getting caught on this. So I have to be really careful. Just going to spray this with a little bit of water. Because this is a really delicate layer, I'm going to hold this under a running tap and just clean it up that way, or soak it in a tray of water or something, and then just pat it dry, because if I'm using this cloth, it's getting caught on this and I'm really worried that I might end up tearing it. Let's do 5. This is 5. Looks pretty good. And this one I am going to use Pink Fresh ink Summer Shower. I have a nice brush again, and again varying degrees of intensity. When you have stencils, it's so much easier to do your coloring. If I wasn't talking through this process, I would actually have been done with all the stencil layers. we are done with this one. And again, look at how beautifully this is turning out. And finally, layer number 6. And I'll use another small detail brush. Look at how pretty that looks. And we are going to fill in all the details because now you're only seeing the bigger images. Now we'll fill in all the details. And because this is a sticky mat, I don't want to yank the paper up because you see it's going to curl. So the easiest way to do is curl the mat back onto itself, and there you go. It just comes off. I am going to bring in my stamp positioner, my Misty, and we're going to get started on the details. And the reason I am using my Misty is only because I had a bit of a hard time lining up the detail stamps because they're so tiny. So I just want to make sure that I have them placed properly before I do any kind of stamping. Let's start with A1. So A1 is for these 3 flowers. It's going to be the details on the petals. So I'm going to line this up as best as I can. And also, even though these stamps are so good, because when I was trying this out, I found that when the stamps are new, you need to condition them a little bit to remove the sticky residue on them, but I really didn't have to do much. It stamped perfectly. So this is the stamp because it's a purple flower. I'm using Opulence, again, Pink Fresh Studio, and I will stamp out the details on these flowers. And the positioner will also allow me to come in and stamp it a second time if I have to, but I doubt it will be required. I'm not pressing it down too hard because I don't want to squish anything, and this stamped beautifully. I don't need to stamp a second time, so I am actually going to use a little bit of alcohol so these dry really fast and go with the next one, because I don't want the Misty door to become wet. So if I use alcohol, it's going to vaporize and dry very, very fast. Let's go with A2. A2 is right here. And A2 are the flower centers. So I'm going to position the flower centers as best as I can. And I'm going to use a Gina K. And I'm going to move this here so it doesn't move, making sure it's all snug in its place. And look at how beautiful that is. A3 is this one. So A3 are the centers for these flowers. So it is going to go like this. And these are tiny details. So here is one thing, because my fingers are, the stamp is kind of sticky, so my fingers are getting stuck in shifting the stamp around. So I'm going to just use this one. And I am going to make sure that it's placed as well as I can place it. What you didn't see me doing is, I edited out that part because my head was right over the Misty, is that I literally had to stick my head in to the frame to make sure that I had it positioned properly. So now I'm going to pick this up, and these are the blue flowers. So I'm going to go with Pink Fresh Storm. Again, beautiful, intricate details, and I'm quite certain I won't need to stamp it a second time, and I don't. And also, I think you're already noticing as the inks are drying, they are smoothing out and becoming even more beautiful. The colors are really coming through. A4 is for these flowers, so I will move this away, and let's go with this. Again, I'm going to use my pokey tool here to make sure that the stamp doesn't stick to my finger and shift more or less in place. So again, making sure that it hasn't moved, I stuck it into the sides of the Misty, and all the instructions are right here. So it's telling me A4 that I just used is the flower detail on this flower. So this is the one that will take the A4 stamp. The instructions are very, very lucid, and it's very, very easy to follow. Let's go with A5. Now A5, 6, 7 are the flowers at the bottom. So I That is very, very dangerous because I have had my fingers pinched between these two magnets and I had blood clots for days. So sometimes I just forget to move them out and then there's an accident. So please be careful if you have two of these magnets. 5. Now, this is A5. These are the details for these two flowers. Going back to the opulence. Ooh, I think I didn't get the alignment quite right. I think I might try this again. Let me clean this up and reposition. I think I'm going to turn it around this way, which is actually the correct way to hold a Misty, but I always like to have the door to my left. And this might help me line this up a little bit better. I hope I don't ruin this. Let's keep our fingers crossed that I don't ruin it. Though it doesn't look too bad, I did really spoil it. But you know what? I'm going to ignore that and I will try and do something to hide that. So that was A5. Now we need A6. A6, where are you? A6 is right here. And this time I'm going to make sure I position it properly before I stamp, and if it misses by just a bit, I am not going to worry. Now that we are done with A6, let's go with A7, which is this one. A7 coming right up. I am not going to repeat my mistake of stamping it again, positioning it again. We need to get the details, the stem and the leaf details, right? So now we have an arch here and another arch here. So let's look at this one. This is for the top, which I am going to have to turn around this way again because I was using this way up, right? This is going to be my top arch. Now I want to check the guide for the positioning. I can see that this part, you see, maybe I can hold it up. This part, these three little sticks here are these little sticks over here. So I need to align these sticks with these little leaves. And once I do that, I should be able to align everything else. I'm going to use my pick tool and I have it in place. Now I'm going to just make the lines really fit. And I'm going to walk you through this. So these little two blue flowers, I know you might be a little bit difficult for you to see, but these blue flowers, this little cluster here, and these sticks that are already explained, they are all going to line up, and I think I'm almost there. I'm not going to mess anymore, and I am going to go in, pick it up. I'm going to go with the darkest green for this one. This is the Lush Forest. That way it'll all come together really well. And again, I'm not going to push it down too hard because I don't want the lines to get squished up, because I can already see that it's not well positioned. It wasn't really well positioned here. It moved a little bit. But again, you know what? I will leave it as is because, oh, but I do see a little bit of a problem over there. So I'm going to go in and stamp it a second time, but just in that area, because I don't want these lines to become very prominent because they didn't really align completely, right, with the leaves. So I don't want that to be too prominent. So I'm just going to go and stamp this part again. I'm still seeing a bit of a problem here, but I think maybe it is meant to be that way. No, it's supposed to be a solid line, but maybe I need to press it down a little bit. Almost there. I'm going to just not bother it anymore. And when you're pulling the stamp off, if you're using a stamp position or whatever else you're using, remember this is a thinner neck kind of thing. So make sure you're using this portion because it's thicker. It's not going to tear. But if you try to yank it up with this part, the stamp might tear. And now I will use the bottom portion of the arch. So I'm seeing that this part, these stems here, go here, right? The stems and the leaves, etc. And these little flowers have another stem and these little flourishes over here. So I'm going to try and align it that way. Because remember, we need to keep the arch shape here because we have the stencil to come in with to create that. So I can clearly see that these stems, these lines, these are actually veins on the leaf here. So if I align those, it should do a good job. Almost. Oh, this is almost perfect. I'll do one more impression and I'm not pushing down too hard. Beautiful. Just look at this. So pretty. So we are going to do the last bit, which is the arch, and going to line this up with the registration marks, making sure I have to make sure that this is really well lined up because we don't want a skewed arch because that's going to look really ugly. All right. And I'm going to be using these two inks to blend. And for that, I'm going to come in with my foam blender, just stick it to the handles and we're ready to go. So I'm going to blend with the yellow first. I'm going to blend inside, keeping it light in the middle like a spotlight. So I'm going to just go this way and then I'm going to go in and just very light-handed, I'm going to do just the edges of the arch because I just want a very light peachy glow. I'm going really light-handed and I think that's as much ink as I'm going to put down. Let's feel this. This looks really nice. It's kind of a nice glow in the middle and we have these pretty florals. It's really gorgeous. The ink has dried really well and you can see how beautiful and soft it looks right now. And what I am going to do is I have these nesting arches dyed. I am going to cut this arch out and also nest it here. So I get two pieces from here. One is I'll get this one and I'll get another border like this. So what I plan on doing is after I've cut out the arches, I'm going to fussy cut out because I don't have the coordinating dies like I mentioned. I'm going to fussy cut out the entire image, the stenciled image, and I'm going to be back and we'll proceed to the next step. I went ahead and cut out the arches like I had mentioned, and I also fussy cut around the stenciled and stamped image. And I have my card base. It's an A2 size card base, and I am thinking of placing these over here like this. However, while I was looking through my stash for a sentiment, because I'm going to use this sentiment, today is all about you, on this little piece, on the smaller arch here, I found this foil, the metallic paper. This was actually from my local dollar store and it has some really pretty colors. And when I found this, like, you know, I keep buying and storing stuff, and I thought this would go perfectly with this one. And this is a little bit too light and I don't have enough contrast, so I just think that this color is really pretty. And I'm going to create, instead of using this arch, I'm going to cut out exactly this arch from this foil. So I am going to, after I cut out this arch from here, I'm going to adhere them together, stamp this down, and once I assemble, and I'll come back and I'll assemble it on camera. And once I assemble it, I may need to add a couple more flowers, but if I do, I'll show you how I did the stamping, etc. So let me go off camera, cut out the arch, and I'll be right back. I cut out the arch and I have this small piece. The only problem is that if you can see that the impression, the tape that I was using to hold down the dies created an impression on this arch, but I will keep it Maybe I can cover it up and use it in some other project, but I will use this arch. And if you look at this, it's going to create a beautiful contrast here. And then I stamped this up as well. So I used the archival ink. This is the best black ink that I have for now, but you can use any black ink, honestly. I was wondering whether I should heat emboss this, but then I decided not to. So I'm going to raise this on foam tape, and I will also raise this on foam tape. And let's get assembling this card. And once this is done, I'll know if I need a couple more flowers. This is actually mounting tape. Buy these rolls from the dollar store, from my local dollar store, and they're like $1.25. And I much rather use these rather than buy expensive foam squares or whatever. I do have quite a few of those, and I also have some foam strips. And this is what I'm going to be using behind the arch, because these are thin enough. You see, these are thin enough, and I got these from AliExpress. Very, very affordable. So I'm going to use these. Let's just get started with, I'm going to bring in my magnetic glass mat. See, these are very handy. I'm assembling cards and things like that. And this is where I bring in another one of my favorite tools, the trusty tweezer, because this will allow me to get my fingers away and position this where I want to. I want to make sure, oops, it's sticking down really fast. I want to make sure the arch is straight and not skewed. What I might do is, because it's sticking down so quickly, I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glue. It'll help me move things around just a little bit. Let's try again. I just apply these two magnets on the arch here, and that will help the whole thing stick properly to the card base. I want the arch to be a little bit higher than this one, than the floral arch here, because I want it to stick up a little bit. But I'm also going to see, maybe I will have this recessed so it's stuck down to the card base and the arch is raised. Or I'm wondering if I should raise this one as well on foam tape so it sticks like that. It sticks up like this. So I can apply 2 layers of this foam tape, and maybe that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove the backing paper here. I'm going to use my tweezers again to make sure it's straight. Just hold it down. The arch is a little bit higher than the floral arch, right? And I am loving the way this looks. If I just hold this down here and I add this, it's going to look really nice. And I think I'm going to put this up on 2 layers of foam tape. I need to do a little bit of surgery over here because this portion is sticking out. And this one is slightly higher than the arch, the foil arch, the metallic one. And the metallic one is, the foil one is slightly higher than the floral. I just need a couple of flowers, I think, and maybe a couple of leaves. That's about it. Like a larger flower, a smaller flower, this one, maybe 3 flowers. So I'm bringing back my purple and my blue inks. I'm going to use blue for the larger flower, purple for the smaller one, just to change it up a little bit. The good thing is I'll be able to do multiple stamping here. It's okay to cut up your stamps a little bit. And again, because I don't have the coordinating dies, I'm going to have to fussy cut, which is fine. I think I'm going to do 2 blue flowers, and I think the medium one I'm going to do in purple. This way I can do it in one shot. Interesting. I don't mind that, actually. It looks kind of neat. So this is the flower center for this one. I'm going to just pick this up with the door, that way it won't shift. This one is really tiny, so I'll need to get this on a block. Let's get the yellow. This is the tiny one. This is the detail layer for this one. And I'm going to just, if you can see that flower center, so, okay. And I have to remember to position this stamp with my finger. Use the darkest blue. I made a boo-boo again. You know what? I'm going to do this again. And this time I'm going to do the detail first. And this is something I have noticed helps, is do the detail layer first before you put down the base layer. Although you're meant to put down the base layer first, but sometimes it's easier to see the detail and line it up with the detail rather than trying to line it up with the base layer. So I'm going to do this, and I can bet you this is going to line up perfectly. I'll lose the little purple there, but I can always add a little bit of purple too if I have to. So now this is done. I can come in, I should remove this, come in and line this up. So if you can see, there is the flower center again over here. Now I'm going to line not only the flower center, but I'm also going to line this petal up. So it's much easier because you can see the petal forming, right? So if that petal is also a marker for me, then I think it's going to be perfect. I'm going to bring this magnet down a little bit. You see, that's perfect. And that's what I should have done. So I'll just add a little here and I'll add a little purple. I need the flower center again. And I'll just go in with my block. And all I need now are the leaves. I don't see leaf details in the stamp. So I'll come back to this one and I'll use the lightest ink. I don't want everything like too dark. I think these are good enough. I'm just going to let the ink dry just for a minute or so, and then I'm going to fussy cut them out, and I'll be back with the flowers and the leaves cut out. So I am back with the fussy cut flowers. So I have 3 little things, and I'm going to bring in my tweezers again and see where I can place them. Maybe here. Actually, let me hold this down so it's easier. Oops, something like this, maybe. Or I have an idea. Maybe what I can do is arrange these here off the card and then try and see where it'll look best. And yeah, I think this is better. And I'm going to use some press and seal. This is press and seal paper. I'm going to just use it. That is better. There you go. It's lifted off nicely. I have the position that I want. Now I'm going to just, and press and seal paper, this is see-through, right? So I know exactly where I want to place it. So I'll just move this around and see what looks best. I think this is where I'm going to put it. So now all I need to do is bring in some liquid glue and place it behind the flowers. Make sure these stick down, and I'm just going to run my finger over this because this is too much glue almost. And I'll let that get a little bit tacky. I'll let it sit for just a few seconds and let it get tacky so that it doesn't ooze out. And I'm going to go in here. It stays the flowers. Oops, I can put that back. I think I had glue on this. Yep, I need a little more glue on this. And I can put this right back over here. I'm just sticking it down to this arch. And now I want to add a little bit of embellishments. So I actually bought this pack from Michael's, and I think this one might look nice. I'm going to try it. I think this is what I'm going to commit to. So this jewel picker is from Studio Katia. This is so handy, very useful tool. And not only do I use it to pick up jewels and stuff, but sometimes when you have smaller die cuts as well, it's easy to pick them up. And Last but not least, look at this. I'm really loving this. And also what I will do is I'm going to stamp a greeting inside, like a happy birthday or something. I am going to do that later on, but that's the finished card. The glimmer of the foil and the jewels as well, the glitter of the jewels, right? I hope you like this card, and honestly, I love this Floral Arch stamp and stencil set, and I'm definitely looking forward to using it. Other projects, I really wish I had the coordinating die because I'm not really fond of fussy cutting, and it would go so much faster if I could just stencil it out and just cut out the floral arch using the die. The other thing that I was thinking is that I could actually cut out the arch, the floral, or just stencil one portion of the arch instead of doing both, and I could use that as well. I do have some other arch stamps from Pink Fresh Studio. I'll see if the arch actually fits around that stamp, because if it does, it's going to be amazing. Then I can try a different composition. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.